Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Spark by Go Studio Speaker Series powered by Plug and Play. We are excited to be hosting you all in this beautiful Atlanta Tech Village. Now, I'm Jenna, and I'm truly thrilled to be your Master of Ceremonies tonight. We deeply appreciate each and every one of you for joining us this evening. Now, if you've been to one of these events before, we are so glad to welcome you back for more fun. And if this is your very first Spark event, sit back, relax, and get ready for something special. Spark by Go Studio is a motivational and educational series of events focusing on innovation and real-world use cases for emerging technologies. Tonight, we'll be taking a quantum leap into quantum computing and post-quantum cryptography to explore how these game-changing innovations will reshape your business and the future of payments. We'll be joined shortly by an esteemed panel of Atlanta-based tech experts to discuss this fascinating subject. But before we get going, I'd like to share some background on our host, Go Studio, and our partner, Plug and Play. First, let's begin with a brief introduction to Go Studio and Income Payments. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Income Payments, we're a global leader in innovative payment solutions. Leveraging dynamic technology and proven expertise, Income Payments delivers results that help businesses grow across a wide range of industries. Now, Go Studio is Income Payments' in-house innovation center with consultant services to solve clients' unique challenges. With a diverse team of highly skilled professionals, we focus on emerging technology solutions for today, tomorrow, and the future. Now, as markets and strategies evolve, Go Studio delivers world-class services and support to help grow a client's business and meet consumer needs. And now I'd like to introduce you to Lourdes Ramos, Partner Success Manager of Enterprise and AI Tech, who will tell you a bit about Plug and Play.
Hello and welcome, everyone. We're very excited and grateful to have you all here. We have a great show lined up for you today, and we'll get started shortly. But first, we wanted to give a special thank you to our panelists and for being here, and as well as the Go Studio team. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, team. I wanted to share a word on Plug and Play as well for those of you who may not be familiar with us. We're a global innovation company working with 600 Fortune 2500 companies around the world. We do three things. We run accelerator programs, provide corporate innovation consulting, and invest through our VC arm. Our accelerator program covers about 23 industries and have operations in over 55 locations around the world. Programs are stage agnostic and entirely free for entrepreneurs. Each program is supported by our sponsoring partners and focuses on the latest technology trends in each sector. Our corporate innovation services are designed to assist corporate innovation teams, CVCs, M&A teams, product teams, and more in finding disruptive technology for those industries and for specific use cases. Through Plug and Play, our partners gain access to an ecosystem of 80,000 startups and late-stage businesses. In Atlanta, we work with Income Payments, Aflac, Georgia Pacific, Wellstar, WeStruck, Coca-Cola, and more. We hope to have an office here soon as well, so let us know. Our ventures team supports both our corporate innovation services as well as our accelerator. We have close to 200 investment professionals and SMEs on our venture team that act as an extension of your partners' tech scouting teams, consistently finding new solutions to their problems. If you have any questions about us, please find me during tonight's networking reception. So now, let's go to the good part. Jenna, have at it.
Thank you, Lourdes. Thank you so much. Now, for the last couple of years, Go Studio has been focused on exploring plausible and possible futures for our customers and their industries. A key feature of these futures is disruptive emerging technology. quantum computing is poised to be a massive disruptor of the status quo for payments, cryptography, and other adjacent industries. Go Studio has been hard at work in building quantum experiments and prototypes that will be ready to go when our customers need a solution. Although we've been researching and building for a while, we've barely scratched the surface, and there's a lot more to learn. What better way to learn together than to assemble a panel of experts and have an invigorating conversation? Without further ado, let's begin our deep dive into quantum computing. Please help me in be giving a big round of applause to our esteemed panelists. We have Dr. Burns Healy, PhD, Emerging Technologies Researcher at Dell Technologies. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the introduction.
Absolutely. We have Chris Carrow, VP InfoSec Innovation, Research and Development at a Fortune 200 bank. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
And we have Tracy Levine, co-CEO and Chief AI Officer at QSmart, although I missed Dr. Abhishek Parakh. Sorry about that. He does not look like a Tracy, does he? Now, Dr. Abhishek Parakh is Professor of Computer Science at Kennesaw State University. And we have Tracy Levine, co-CEO and Chief AI Officer at QSmart.ai. Thank you so much for being here. What a great group we've assembled here tonight. Now we're going to start the evening off with some individual perspectives on our topic, but before we begin our panel discussion, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the panel, so keep that in mind and keep those questions brewing as we dive into quantum computing in payments. Now our first speaker is Tracy Levine. Tracy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So, Tracy, I think we need our podium. Actually, for Miss Tracy. I think we coordinated that wrong, but that's okay.
That's okay. I'm good without a podium because I like to move around, so it's probably better. As long as the cameraman does not flag me down.
You know what? I'm going to give you the stage, Tracy.
I thought we were doing slides.
And I assume the slides are up here. There we go. So I'm going to get right to the start of this and let you know that I know about quantum computers, but I'm not a PhD in quantum computers. So I'm going to look at the group, and are there any PhDs out here in quantum computers who are here today? Are there people who know a little bit about quantum computers? Are there people who are here because they want to learn more about quantum computers? Are there people here who are looking at all of this and thinking, I could use this in my business, or is the jury still out? Because I'm going to ask you that question at the end to see if we can move you a little bit along the way to become a dreamer of what the possibility is with quantum computers. And one of the things I wanted to start off with, because people don't really understand what a quantum computer is. I've got news for you. You are not going to be playing video games on quantum computers. And quantum computers are not faster versions of classical computers. I want to see a show of hands when somebody's told you, oh, they just compute faster. Well, what you're going to learn today is they compute differently. And so what they are is, you think about the overachiever. They do very, very complex problems, things that are not as easily done on a normal computer. But here's the good news. You're still going to be able to play Minecraft better on your laptop. You're still going to be able to play Roblox, Blocks, and TikTok. It is not going to probably disrupt your everyday life. So does that make you feel better? Because when I hear about new technology, I'm thinking, what am I going to have to learn new, and how is it going to change? Not how can I integrate it. So how is quantum computing different? And all of you have probably heard that classical computers are zeros and ones, and that quantum computers use qubits that also use zeros, ones, but they could be both. They could use both at the same time. So the example they give, which didn't really resonate with me, so you'll see I made my own, is that if you have a coin and you're spinning it through the air, it could be both heads and tails. And it can be, the light switch could be on and the light switch could be off. And at this point, there's some of you who are like, do I need to pay attention? Because she's getting ready to use some quantum words. And all I want to know is this going to be as important as or better than ChatGPT when it comes to helping me in a job? And the answer is yes. And so I'm going to give you 3 quantum computer concepts. And this is not the PhD level. This is the business people. I need to know what I'm going to do with this quantum computer level. And quantum computers have a superpower. And that superpower is superposition. So think about if you were a consultant and you can be in multiple meetings at once. What if everybody on the team was synced and you knew what it was and everybody knew it? If one knew it, you all knew it. And what if you didn't have to get consensus and you didn't have to send out the survey and you have interference within a quantum computer? It pushes things up that are the best ideas and all the bad ones fade away. So if you take all of that, imagine what that could do in your job. If you can do more things at once, get more done, more places, and everybody knows what you've done, you don't have to explain it, and only the good ideas make it to the top and the others fade away. And I keep thinking they're changing my slides. I realize I'm on this slide. So what can quantum computers do? If you've been watching the news and you've been watching all of the PQC, post-quantum cryptography, and the move by infrastructure, banks, and healthcare to be the first adopters of the new post-quantum cryptography. Well, why they're talking about it is quantum computers are really good with math. And because they're really, really good with math and complex problems, they can break our current cryptography that we use in all our systems today. And Verizon put out a report in 2016. They believe once they're ready with Shor's algorithm, they could do it in 10 seconds. So the other thing that quantum computers can do is they can optimize. They can, with logistics and science, and they can do simulation models, and they can improve your machine learning and enhance what you do. But since a lot of you are in the payments industry, what can it do for you? What's really cool about a quantum computer, remember, it could have 2 states at once. It has superposition. It could do all these things that a classical computer can't do, so it's able to bring in a lot more data. And being able to bring in a lot more data, it's easier to analyze it and figure out and detect and prevent fraud. It helps optimize assessment models, whether it's from credit or finance, and how you want to do your portfolio. It has transaction speed that is really, really, really fast compared to a normal computer. But it also, say, for example, like with gift cards, it can predict when people are going to redeem those cards and see if there's an anomaly to help catch fraud going forward. So the future is hybrid. I know there's going to be a lot of talk about all the great things quantum computers can do, but it's going to be a marriage between classical computers and quantum computers. And the reason why I say this is quantum computers are really, really good at taking these big sets of data, but the data that gets fed into the quantum computers come from a classical computer. So your day-to-day work, you will still be doing. You'll be cleaning the data before it goes in the classical computer. From the classical computer to the quantum computer. So they're sometimes called the driver of the quantum computer. And when it gets through with the process and it spits it out, it's going to be a program on your classical computer that's going to put out the visual. So your day-to-day life is just you're going to get information quicker, but the way you push data out and the way it comes back to you is going to be the same. And we were talking about this beforehand, and I'm going to just stop here because everybody says, how are they going to connect all this? Newsflash, API. Like everything else you do. There is an API that attaches the classical computer to your quantum computer. So they can integrate in once they become cost effective. So when you think about the future of quantum computing, there has to be scalability. And 2025 looks like it's going to be a very interesting and positive year. There's a lot more industry collaboration. There is a lot more innovation going on and opportunities to innovate. Things are being rethought, they're redoing it, and they're reinventing. And you're seeing a lot of fast movement in this industry. And so it's getting close to being practical because it's hard to talk to business people about investing in quantum computers if there's no ROI. So 2025 is a really big year for people to sort of watch and see if the investment comes back, because now we're getting to things that are more practical. And one of the things, and I'm going to ask y'all questions after I get through with this, giving you a call of actions, is sit back and think about what are the possibilities. What are things within your industry that having a quantum computer compared with a classical computer can make a huge impact on what you're doing day to day? And so what I would encourage you to do is don't think about quantum computers as magic. Listen to the news, but actually listen to how people are using quantum computers in their businesses and see how other people are researching. And I would also encourage you, if you have not, be a little bit brave. Go on to IBM's, they call it KISS-KIT, but it's spelled QSIKIT, and take the intro to how do I code for a quantum computer. And it takes a little bit of the mystery out of it because you code for that a lot like you code for a regular computer. Or if you want to understand how superposition works, go ahead and go to the Google lab and log in there, and it's a game. It's the most torturous game ever. You have to stop the bubbles from bursting and heating up. It's the most stressful game I've ever played, but it is the best illustration of how a quantum computer works. And I just went through a very, very high-level overview because the speaker after me is a PhD in quantum computers, so I didn't feel like I should be up here talking at that level, but wanted to get you ready to understand that there are possibilities. Does anybody out there have any ideas that they wish that they think, or if they had the talent, could be applied in the job they're in today or in a field that they're interested in? So I know there are people from Incom. Are there nobody, y'all I know you've talked about it, you're sponsoring it. Would it help with fraud detection, payment, speed? Yeah, sounding yes. I can't, I'm like, they're all looking at me. So I'm going to let the next speaker come up, but I would encourage you, think of the possibilities, because this is going to be your chat GPT moment, that you didn't know it was a thing until it was a thing. And be the first to get on board and look at the opportunity and be the first to ideate around it. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy. That was so fascinating. So our next speaker tonight is Healy. Thank you for joining us, Burns. Let's give it up for Burns.
Thank you. All right, and I have to thank Tracy for giving me the PhD in quantum computing. Actually, my PhD is in mathematics, but very close to my heart. I appreciate that upgrade. No, I work in emerging technologies at Dell, and we sit in the office of the CTO, so we're sort of tasked with keeping an eye on, keeping tabs on some of these topics. Quantum computing is one, but we also work on things like edge computing and various things. Very recently, AI was kind of in our remit for a while when it was emerging, and now it has sort of emerged, and that has sort of graduated onto bigger pastures. But within the office of the CTO, I take on a quantum research lead, specifically within management and orchestration. So my slides today will have a little bit of a bent towards that. But I really appreciate Tracy giving that great introduction. She did a lot of the hard work for me coming up here, so I can already assume that you guys know a little bit about what a quantum computer does and doesn't do. So I get to skip through a few of these extremely long slides that are probably timed closer for 30 minutes than 10 minutes, but it's okay because I talk fast. So what do we do at Dell is we want to guide folks through a process, because it is a process to adopt quantum computing, or even to think about adopting quantum computing is intimidating, right? I mean, it is this novel way of doing computation. It's sort of unclear what it is that is giving advantage or what it's not being used for. How do I deploy it? And really, we see it as kind of this three-step process. And first process is what you're doing all here tonight, what you're all doing watching tonight or today or wherever you're watching, if you're watching recorded, which is discovery, is learning, figuring out what it is that people are saying about these technologies, what it is that we're promising might come down the pipe later, whatever that may be, but really getting a handle on what quantum computing means, okay? After that, turn back inwards, look at your own use cases, look at what it is inside your organization, inside your lab, if you're in academia, wherever you are. What is it that you're working on that you feel like might benefit from some of these workloads that we say that quantum computers are going to be especially good at? And then, of course, the difficult job of deployment, okay? Actually writing those quantum algorithms, writing that quantum code with Qiskit, as Tracy mentioned, whichever framework you're using, actually getting your problem into one of these forms so that it can be run on a quantum computer. And it's a daunting journey, but every passing cycle we get not only more mature quantum accelerators, but we also get more mature frameworks. We get more mature coding languages. We get higher level abstraction and ways to do this, lowering the barrier of entry to get into using some of this advantage. And that's really kind of been my guiding principle since I've joined at Dell, is I really want to help folks get this deployed, help them adopt and learn about it and see what we can do in terms of getting it right for your use case. So quantum computing, as again, I can't help but mention Tracy because she did such a great foundational job for me. I appreciate it. It doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It exists surrounded by non-quantum infrastructure. It lives in a world of HPC, of CPUs, GPUs, DPUs, NPUs, any kind of PU you can imagine, right? And then as well, you've always got, you've got storage, you've got all of these different network connections that are helping you actually utilize this technology. And if you look at this kind of rough sketch of a diagram, you'll see that, conveniently marked Dell in a lot of these boxes. But the point that we're trying to make is that it's existing technology, right? The QPU, quantum processing unit, sits as a node, sits as a component in a larger framework. And most of what you're interacting with is going to continue to be through API. It's going to be this familiar setting. And what we are trying to drive home is that you are still going to be leveraging these technologies using existing infrastructure. So some of these names you've seen, Jupyter Hub, Kubernetes, these are still very important tools to leveraging quantum technologies. Penny Lane, CERT, Qiskit, these are ways of coding quantum computing. But by and large, this is not some abstract, faraway idea. It's another way of doing computation, but still should, if I'm doing my job correctly, should feel somewhat familiar. So what have we done in this space? We actually, 2 years ago now in 2022, we released our first play in the quantum space, which is the quantum computing solution. And it's a server. It's a server based on our R series or our XE series. But now I'd say that what's important to kind of take away from this slide is not all of the numbers, but more so the idea that the classical computer is here, the non-quantum computer is here to help you leverage those quantum resources and to emulate quantum computers. So right now, if you are going out and you're hiring time on an IBM machine, or you're hiring time on whichever INQ, whichever vendor of choice you're going with, it's expensive. And it should be. These are very valuable resources, and they're very, very powerful machines. But if you're doing a hello world coding exercise using quantum gates, right, ideally you would like to have some kind of sandbox environment to do that work in, so that you're not, every time you're running hello world, you're trying to access these devices with long queue times and through these different portals. So what this is really intended to do, again, with the idea towards lowering barrier of entry, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give an idea of what it looks like to think in quantum language. And so this is a particular solution where you can execute some of those quantum algorithms actually on a non-quantum computer that emulates the behavior of a QPU. So that's the goal here. And it doesn't have the same capacity. Obviously, if you could do everything with a quantum computer, do everything that a quantum computer can do with an existing non-quantum computer, then we wouldn't need the QPU. So there are limitations there, but for this experimental phase that we're in, if you're in that discovery phase, you're learning about these tools, we see using your existing classical resources as a great way to start. This is a note from our VP of Research, and it's really just kind of getting at that idea, again, that Tracy mentioned, of hybrid classical quantum computation. These are technologies that work hand in hand. I prefer saying QPU to quantum computer because in that mental model that we have in these flow charts and these diagrams, the QPU is a node, and it gets used by a server. It gets used by the end user's laptop, right? But it gets used in this kind of function as a service or accelerated fashion, the same way you would say want to access a GPU for these very specific workloads, right? Nobody's going to hand you a quantum computer and have you play video games on it. Same way, nobody's going to hand you a GPU that plugs into a PCIe slot with no PCIe slot to plug into. So we really are of the mindset that our job as classical computer users is to help bring those tools to life and help ease that adoption risk. So that's what's out there now. I can't ever pass up an opportunity to talk about our amazing research that we're doing internally, and some of my really, really extremely talented colleagues are doing here. And so what we're doing is we're trying to enhance that job of the classical engine that accesses the quantum resource. So obviously the quantum resource has its own strengths. Each of these different kinds of quantum computers has their own strengths and weaknesses. But our job here, again, if we're doing it right, is to give you the tools to make the most of that quantum resource, right? Right now, they are a little bit throttled in terms of their scale. They're quickly scaling up year over year, but there are still workloads that are going to be too big to fit on certain quantum computers as we expand that number of qubits. There's the question of cost, right? Again, cost will be coming down year over year, but in the meantime, you would like to do the job of minimizing how much of that QPU time you're actually spending to evaluate the same workload. So what we are doing is on the first node that you touch, if you're in an HPC infrastructure environment, on that first node, actually doing some of this pre-processing work that's going to actually help optimize your workload before it gets to the QPU. If you have redundant instructions, if you have non-optimized algorithms, helping trim that down so not only A, does it fit within the scope of the quantum computer that you're looking for, but also B, hopefully save you some time and money in the execution. And that's what really this slide and this whole deck is getting at, is saying that there are ways to use the existing tools to actually help leverage this really amazing technology that we're here to learn about today. And I've got a lot of shaking slides. Let's move past that. All right. I'm down to a minute left, so I don't want to get into too many details here. But the last thing I'd like to leave you with is that we're very big in the research office at Dell in not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. So one thing that we did is we took one of these different kinds of quantum computers called a quantum annealer, and we said, let's use it. We are a large multinational company. We obviously have some of the most complicated combinatorial optimization problems in the world you can imagine across however many countries, however many sites within those countries. We said if anybody's going to be able to use an accelerator that's great for optimization problems, gosh, we're probably up there. And so we did. We went out and we talked to our supply chain, and we said, what are some problems that you're trying to solve? And they said, thank goodness you're here. Let's talk about it. And I got a 2-hour-long lecture about all of the problems we're trying to solve. So I said, okay, let's pick one. And we picked one, and we spent about 6 months condensing it from, first, this kind of large optimization problem involving many, many different parties within the company, all with their own inputs and constraints. And we said, okay, let's take all this information and let's actually develop a quantum algorithm to run this. And we did. We took a number of different constraints about supply chain pieces and ordering procedures and a lot of different constraints to do with diversity and resilience of supply chain. And we took this and made a quantum algorithm and ran it. And I'm out of time, so I'm not going to tell you too much about what the outcome was, but you can please talk to me or ask me a question during the panel or talk to me during the networking, and I'll be happy to tell you about it. And the long and short of it is that I'm really excited about seeing more deployments of this, because even though the scale is still getting there, if you can really find the right use cases for these technologies, there are places to get started today, and there are places where you can get some utility and drive some value already, and it's a really exciting spot to be in. So I know I'm a little bit over. Thank you so much for listening to me on that, and I appreciate the time.
All right, thank you so much, Burns. I definitely learned a lot tonight, but the fun is just beginning. I'd like to invite all of our panelists back to the stage for a group discussion on quantum computing. Now is the time to enter. This time we got it right. Hi again. Hello. All right. Okay, so why don't we start this out by just an overview. So I'm going to ask this of all of you, and whoever feels compelled to answer the question, please feel free. So the first question is, how do you explain quantum computing to someone without a physics background, like me? Anyone want to take a shot at this?
What's the next one?
Go ahead.
No, it's, I have to keep coming back to what Tracy said, because I think she put it really well. But it comes back to this idea of superposition, right? It's the idea that in classical computing, you have ones and zeros, and then in quantum computing, you have ones and zeros, but mixed up together. And the analogy I like to use is that, so I did my graduate work in Massachusetts, and if you're going out to the edge of the Cape, you're going to, say, Provincetown or something, you drive a really, really, really long way all the way around to get to it. But if you could just go over the ocean in a ferry, it takes a lot less distance anyway. And that's essentially what quantum algorithms and quantum computers let you do. It gives you some additional flexibility with your bits by turning them into qubits, and gives you additional instructions to let you take some of these shortcuts and say, we don't have to go the long way around. We can actually go through this different parameter space and get to a solution in a fewer number of steps.
What a wonderful way to explain it. Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to add to that? No, you really did, all right? Yeah.
So how I explain it sometimes to my students is, so you hear this word quantum parallelism quite often, and what it really means is when you have quantum superposition, like Burns said, you are able to load multiple values into a quantum register at any given time, right? So for example, if you're looking for an encryption key, then in a classical computer, you would load one value of an n-bit encryption key, and then the next value and the next value, so it takes forever for you to find that. But in superposition, you can load all the 2 raised to n values together, and then you can simultaneously process them. So this provides a massive parallelization of computation, and therefore, in some cases, not all, you can actually then extract the right result out of the end. You have all of these 2 raised to n processed values, but only one answer is correct. So that's where the trick comes in. You have to extract the one correct answer out of the many results. So in some cases, you are able to do that, and that's where quantum computers are useful.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So you answered one of my other questions, so I'll skip to the next one, which is, what are some examples of quantum computing technology currently being used today? Burns, I feel like you have an answer brewing, I can tell.
Well, I mean, right, we spoke about one of those inside of Dell when it comes to supply chain optimization problems, but I think that's one of the big use cases that we're seeing right now is is optimization problems in a lot of different forms are gaining a lot of traction. Another very, very popular area is in material science. So actually, the idea of modeling chemical interactions with quantum computers has really come alive, and that's in part because when you get to that chemical, like atom-to-atom level, those quantum effects become very important. You can't accurately really understand the interaction without taking that into account. And so in some sense, you're already speaking the natural language of the QPU when you're talking about those sorts of interactions.
Fascinating. Wow. Mind blown. So, all right, let's move to the financial side of things, okay? So how can quantum computing potentially transform the payments industry?
In the payments industry, we have several challenges associated with quantum computing, what it brings. Right now, we're in the pioneering stages of quantum computing, so you hear about it tonight, but when it comes to it being mainstream and available and accessible to everyone, it's not. And so encryption that we're using currently is certain versions of it are susceptible. But that's the security piece. The business side of the piece, obviously, with that computational power, you can do much more analysis and crunching of numbers to determine potential of what an outcome can be produced for when it comes to high frequency trading and other areas, portfolio management and such. But the key thing to understand is we're in the infancy of quantum computing. We have a long way to go before it becomes mainstream, and it could be a great thing or it could be a disaster. And so we're preparing for both, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Tracy, I feel like you have a response.
I'm just laughing because I'm going to challenge a little bit.
Oh, please.
I think you're seeing banks that adopt AI and payment houses that adopt AI quicker, who are cleaning their data better, and they are starting to use the more sophisticated models to organize their data, being able to start testing in smaller blocks because they're making the first cleanup. Because if you think about data for the longest time, everywhere you went, somebody was taking data. And a lot of that data is useless. And so with the new models, you think about, I think about the Excel spreadsheet with macros. We're not there anymore. But you used to, when you even ran a model or an algorithm, you would have to pull 2,000 categories in order to get the correct answer. You can now pull 5 and have a 95 to 100% confidence. So we're learning how to shrink our data to get it prepared to be in the quantum computer so it's not so taxing when we bring it to the quantum computer. So the people that we have been talking with in our company are really leaning into this whole concept of getting their data under control and cleaning it so that they can take advantage of the ROI that you can get as you get to supercomputers also and quantum computers. And as NVIDIA and Intel bring the DPUs, GPUs, and vGPUs, and now the QPUs, all the PUs as I call it, there's this real opportunity in 2025 to see some movement that we haven't seen in the past. I think we've all gotten jaded, and I would agree with you. There for a while, it's like, it's coming, but we weren't prepared to even have it show up at our doorstep and connect to our computers, and you're seeing people starting to prepare for that transition, and whether it happens next year or the year after, you're going to see some movement because the cloud companies are really leaning in and helping people understand what it means to have less data, cleaner data, and synthetic data. So you're not going through all your old data. You don't need all that old data to have the same confidence and the same information than you did it in the past. So you're not processing it the same way. And I know it's a long answer, but we're getting ready to have this huge next generation of how we deal with our data and actually see the possibility of doing something that's different in the way we approach business.
Well, Tracy, I agree with what you said, but you didn't focus on quantum computing. You focused on artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and all of those
well,
other
we
things,
use quantum
which is a part of it.
We
yes,
use quantum
and model
computing in our
creation, we're still
solutions
doing
too.
that.
We know how to use it in our solution too. But the quantum computer is attached with a I joke about an API. There are lots of different things, but it attached like everybody else. And we're seeing people not be afraid to push the button to test. And for those who are in the previews of the quantum computing as a service, all the cloud companies now, you remember when you had cloud computing as a service and you did not have to do it on-prem? You're now seeing it where you can rent time on D-Wave and all these different computers to have smaller tests so that you can see what you can actually bring to business and what it's really going to cost when you embrace synthetic data, which Gartner has been going around, they're one of the big ones, training around synthetic data and AI so that you can use quantum as a service.
Okay, fascinating. Would anyone like to add to that? Nope? Well, then I would like to add to that and say, what are some specific use cases for quantum computing and payments and financial services?
I'm going to let him go.
Yeah, I feel like Chris has an answer to that.
Well, there are lots of use cases for the application of quantum. And as was alluded to with models, developing Gen AI models so that you can have more dynamic, immediate responses to some of your needs. There's no question about that. When my earlier comment was in the pioneering stage, I still stand by that. We're not at the point now yet where we can crack some of the encryption standards that we're supporting presently. We're getting there. And so the door is cracked just a little bit open. And it's an opportunity to explore and determine what things we can do and take our existing processes that aren't necessarily having to be classically computed dependent and say, well, let's think outside the box. What's next? Because could be great, could be wonderful, and if you're not ready for that change, you could have a problem. Hence, the biggest challenge most companies have is crypto agility, is being prepared and positioned to understand what encryption standards they have currently and where they're going to go once that standard has been determined. And so we're right now, I think, at 100 qubits capability, but it's going to take a whole lot more to get to the place where we're really taking advantage and gaining the benefit of what quantum can offer.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give a different answer.
Okay.
I'm not into pants on fire. So Canada and Europe has already came out and said AES 256 is broken. Mm-hmm. And you can see the AI that they use. It's pretty straightforward, and you don't need a quantum computer. You have AES 256 in your cloud today and everything. Everybody flipped it to it, and you have this piece. So you have this group of people who are talking about crypto agility. What do we do? So in Europe, they said, we're not going to stay awake at night. So they have a new requirement. You have to wrap one encryption inside of another encryption. And so there actually is a legal precedent right now. Whether you believe it or not, they have picked what you have to do, and they have deadlines. And I almost put it in my slide. So you can go to 2030 or 2035 if you would like, but the deadline for most things to be switched within your system is 2027, and then it's uncapped liability for a breach. You have no legal rights in the court systems. Our courts have said that if you get the customer's data breached, and you think about FDIC and keeping things in storage for 20, 30 years, that's the smorgasbord. That is uncapped liability. So they have put out under NIST a guideline. And I'm going to agree with you in a way, because you can't just flip the switch. So the first deadline was for the cloud. And they said everybody has to move to the new standard in the cloud. Well, everybody waited around, because who wants to be the cloud company to flip a switch and break somebody's business? So Microsoft said, I'm going to flip something, and they broke people's printers because the old RSA key would not work because it had been deprecated since 2011, and the printer company hadn't updated. And so they have something called, and I hate this because you see this panel up here, when you talk to the cloud companies, they call it the grandma problem. I'm sorry, it's the grandpa problem. We have to do things in a way, so if you actually look at what's going on, they're starting with the clouds and the digital signatures, and they're moving to everything around your networking. And then they're moving all the way to your phones. So along the way, when you start rolling off your computer, there are 20 billion devices that the World Economic Forum and Deloitte has said have to be replaced by 2030. And only the niche stuff gets scrapped after 2035. But what they figure is that you're going to get a new phone because we all are, like our new phones, we like our new computers. So as they roll out the computers and phones, they will start having customers that if they change in the payments process or anything, that the customers, if you change your encryption, they're still going to be able to get in because they're going to be able to interact with the new PQC standards. And so it has started, and the cloud companies are starting it now and are flipping the switch. And I'm going to stop, but it's really cool what they're doing.
So when you talk about the standard and the flip, you've got to remember there are different protocols for different functions and different environmental contexts. So
I know
rather
all those, and I have patents
by some of the generalization.
So I'm going to challenge
Ooh,
you.
I love the challenge.
So I'm going to tell you,
here.
this is our challenge. I don't know, we have international patents, and we're going to talk about cryptology, and I'm going to challenge, because here's where we have to have
And then we'll
opposite.
have to wrap this up in
We'll wrap it up.
seconds.
But here's what I want to say to everybody. Don't take no for an answer, because I'm going to agree with you in some ways, because you see these challenges. But the answer and the innovation is looking at those challenges and not saying they cannot get done. Because when you stop saying it can't get done, you start problem solving. And he is absolutely right. They have different standards for different environments, and they're not necessarily easy just to throw them in. But they're not asking for an opinion. They're telling you have to do it.
Love this debate, guys. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome. So we're going to move on, and I would like to ask the question is, what are the implications of quantum computing for cross-border payment system? And Abhishek, is this something that you feel comfortable talking about?
No, I don't know about cross-border payment systems.
Burns, is this in your wheelhouse?
I'm going to leave it to these two. I think
No,
we've got
I'm
a lot
going to
of
leave it to
energy.
him. I am going to totally leave it to him, because that's out of my
I am a cybersecurity professional, okay? Now, I have been in the payments world for a while with my current organization I'm supporting. We already have a process in place for that. And I'm sure that with the introduction of quantum, it would expedite the workflow and make it more effective and efficient. And this is the strength of quantum, is, when we talked about superposition, interference, and entanglement, those are the three components that bring you to a place that says, yeah, this makes sense. This is what it's all about. You've got to understand, there's a paradigm shift here. Just like when everyone said, oh, we're going to the cloud. What's that? I see them in the sky. We've got the same situation here, is where we're at, because fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD, as we all know, is going to come into play, and we're going to have to manage it. So crypto agility, grandma or grandpa, doesn't matter to me, but backward compatibility to support those business requirements is going to be key. And how are we going to position that thing for the next step that has to be taken? So those are, and among other considerations, not even addressing some of the other things that aren't laid out in the room, like potential warfare capabilities with the use of quantum and other things. And so this is not a minor thing. This is a point in history where we can all celebrate, but be aware there's some preparation and positioning we have to take.
I have a feeling the next few years are going to be very interesting. So, all right, let's move on to the next question, which is, how can quantum computing help in optimizing financial portfolios and risk management and payment solutions? Is this something you feel comfortable answering, Bert?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think the first order approximation would be that a, say, portfolio optimization problem is an optimization problem, right? The context influences the mathematical formulation, right? But at the end of the day, when you have a polynomial that needs to be minimized, that is what it is. But what I think is very interesting when it comes to specifically the financial vertical is that you have these correlations that need to be taken into account, right? So if you're de-risking a portfolio, ideally what you're doing is you're minimizing the interdependence of different assets within that portfolio, right? So in the classical sense, you're saying, okay, tech stocks and healthcare stocks and different stocks, because you don't want to load up 95% on tech and say, oh, it's diversified. They're all different companies. You say, yeah, but they tend to move up and down together. And from my work, what I've seen is that one real strength of quantum algorithms and quantum hardware is that it deals with that interdependence very well. It has kind of, again, a natural affinity to dealing with that probabilistic interplay between different components of the problem. And it goes back to not just superposition, but entanglement. The idea that the state vector, which is what position the qubits are in, that is a dependency, a probabilistic dependency problem between the qubits. And again, anytime that you have the ability to speak the QPU's language, that's going to be where you're more likely to find an advantage or a utility using a quantum processor.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Anyone else like to add to that?
That's good.
By the way, don't forget to write down any of your burning questions. We definitely want some good Q&A at the end. So if anything sparks the question for you, don't forget to write it down. All right, so the next question I have is, what steps are being taken to develop quantum-resistant cryptography to ensure the security of payment systems?
You want to start?
Sure, I can start.
I've already spoken.
I was going to say, I'm waiting for you to speak.
That's fine. So I mean, the biggest thing that launched the whole quantum computing race in some ways is the discovery of the Shor's factoring algorithm and Grover's search algorithm, which can potentially break RSA and ECC, as well as dent a little bit of AES, right? So you'll have to double the key sizes for AES. Now, so NIST, obviously, which sets the standards in most cases, is taking it pretty seriously, thinking quantum computers will be here in 10, 15 years. And therefore, about 4 years ago, they started the post-quantum cryptography competition to standardize replacement for RSA and ECC public key crypto systems. AES is not scheduled to be replaced, just the key exchange part, which is the public key exchange. So I think they are in the last final stages of standardization at this point. So it's been 4 or 5 years. And they should be putting out, I think, in the next couple of years, finalized standards to which everybody would have to move to with respect to public key exchange. So, but we are hoping that all of this will be pretty seamless, as just changing a library that you're using. Everything will be prepackaged and ready to load. So it shouldn't really drastically change, except that everybody has to update the system. The challenge would be actually any point of sale systems or anything that has hard-coded software in them, so you have to go and change the firmware in those. Otherwise, I think we are pretty well prepared to, at least in case eventually quantum computers become a reality, to actually be safe, at least from e-commerce perspective.
Tracy, I feel like you have a response.
I just feel like I've got to be polite and be quiet, because that's not the opinion of the cloud companies. It's not going to be easy. And they've already they have picked, it's 2024, and one of them has a lattice math problem. And they figured out through one of the cybersecurity companies how to hack it while it was computing. So they've already had to change the lattice. And to the frustration of everybody in the room, it's hard to switch to something that you don't know is stable, even if they say it's stable. And so it makes it very hard if you're in a business position. But they have mandated through the SEC, I'm going to get to the SEC piece because I'm a business person. Everybody's heard of the software bill of materials you have to put in your SEC filing. Well, hidden in that software bill of goods is a cryptography bill of materials. So when you get hacked starting next year, you're going to have to let it tell them where you are in the movement to PQC within your system. Because one thing we never mentioned up here, and somebody who's probably stronger than this than me as far as years, because I probably wasn't born then. I'm only kidding. I'm probably the only one on the panel. But I believe that the cryptography we use today, most of it was built in the 1970s, before we even had quantum computers, much less the cloud. And so we're literally trying to move these bigger problems to the cloud. And it's not so easy to move in the cloud, and it's not so easy. Think about the payments. It's really hard for them to put it on a device that was never meant to take that much compute power to begin with. So it's a little bit, it's difficult to do it.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to add to that? No? Okay. All right. So next question is, what are the biggest challenges the payments industry faces in adopting quantum computing?
Cost. I'm just going to throw that out.
I really like Abhishek's point about the firmware. Actually, that's a really good point for point-of-sale systems. Yeah.
Yeah, point-of-sale systems. I mean, we still have PLCs sitting out in the field in the middle of nowhere, right? So that control very critical systems, infrastructure, and so on. So updating them is always a big challenge, and like Tracy said, even getting the piece of code on old hardware, right? So a compact piece of code, because the new crypto systems that are coming up, their overhead is quite a bit more than the older crypto systems. So larger message sizes and larger key sizes and lot more computation than before. So that's one of the challenges. But from quantum computing, obviously, having a functioning quantum computer that can give an answer to some real world problem would be the first step for payment industry to actually think about using it in some sense.
So what is the supply of quantum computers? NVIDIA went through the roof due to this AI. So what is the supply chain like for quantum computers?
Quantum computers are not small beans. They are very expensive, have a huge carbon footprint. They're prone to error. You have to keep them so flipping cold that they won't work otherwise. So, I mean, respectfully, we should be preparing and positioning. And part of that is crypto agility, backward compatibility, firmware updates. How are you creating code now? If you can't do a quick update with the latest encryption standard that needs to be applied, then you need to probably rethink how you're developing code. So you need to go back through your whole development life cycle and workflows for everything you do and say, what happens when we need to change the encryption standards?
I agree 100% with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
100%.
I think draw a parallel to what we said earlier, because like I said, I like to call it a QPU, because I want to harken back to the idea of a GPU. I think there's a lot of relevancy to treating it as an accelerator. But to the point is, the GPU was, of course, for graphics, and then the idea, NVIDIA goes through the roof because we now find out that this hardware that's already matured can be used for other purposes, such as training AI models. And really, in quantum, we're sort of the other way around, right? We have Shor's algorithm, we have Grover's algorithm, we have a few more. We have all these ideas of what this hardware is able to do. Now we just need the hardware at a scale that can do it. So we're kind of backwards from the NVIDIA example. And so to your point, yeah, it's not the case where you can go out right now and just pick up a PCIe-enabled quantum accelerator to plug into your laptop at home.
It'd be fun.
Right?
But that's such a great example because it shows you where we developed the technology to perform a task, then innovation came in, Gen AI, artificial intelligence. Now we'll move into deep learning, machine learning, NLP. Hey, now we can take this capability and apply it in a new, dynamic, powerful way.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. This is awesome. All right, so what ethical considerations should be taken into account as we move towards quantum computing in payments?
Well, the carbon footprint was a good example.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say, think about how bad it is when we get breached or hacked now. Now you get breached and hacked, and they could reach out to all your customers at the speed of quantum. So cybersecurity, and to your point, going back through all the systems and understanding how everything connects together is going to be even more important than it was today, because getting hacked at the speed of quantum is going to be something like we have never had before.
That was a movie, right, from the 80s?
Yes.
Quantum.
And so our cybersecurity investment should also parallel our investment in pioneering new technologies so that we can maintain that balance and be prepared and positioned to respond in effective ways. Still the same old rules apply, defense in depth et cetera, et cetera. There was an incident this past week, I'm sure impacted many of you. It was unexpected.
Yeah.
It was out of the blue.
Yeah.
Well, we've learned, haven't we?
Well, what did we learn? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I think
Thank
I
you.
learned. We have a lot of technical debt.
Yes.
So this isn't about whether we're going to a supercomputer to a quantum computer. We are going to an abacus on some of these places that are PLCs that are running stuff out that we call IoT. They barely function. And so when you take it in a bigger perspective, all this technical debt is adding up because we are in cyber warfare. We're being attacked all over the place. And I really believe what Erwin went through, that people need to go back in and they need to audit and they need to start getting rid of some of the technical debt before they can move forward with the new technology that's out there in order to take advantage of it.
Yeah, great insights, Tracy. Would you like to add anything to those points?
No, I would just say that that's actually exactly what I experienced when we developed the supply chain example. We went through and we actually had to deal with quite a bit of technical debt just to understand the problem in the first place. They were using a lot of really outdated methods. The problem was distributed across a lot of different places, and even to get the specification, let alone the data, was a significant process. And I know it's easier to just tweak existing frameworks rather than kind of overhauling, but sometimes that's what you need to do.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so how can financial institutions and technology companies collaborate to advance quantum computing and payments?
I think we're already doing it.
Yeah.
I think there are lots of industries out there, subgroups, I won't mention a few of them, where they're getting together and deciding this is going to be the impact. How do we manage it? I know with my current position that it's one of my roles and responsibilities that among institutions, we gather together, we discuss it. Well, you know, we throw the stickies against the wall and say, what if and what about? And so you need to take your discipline and say, when this happens, where's the benefit? Where's the risk? And manage it accordingly.
Abhishek, would you like to add to that?
No, like it's been mentioned, I mean, there's a lot of exploration taking place, right? So payment industry and quantum computing companies that are coming up are trying to explore solutions to new problems. Most of it is revolving around optimization. Some of it is also revolving around predictions. Because one of the intuition in quantum computers is that since you can keep things in superposition, you can delay decisions as long as you want, and you can compute all the possibilities before you have to make a decision. And that is quite counterintuitive to classical computing. So there's a lot of potential.
So for those who procrastinate, quantum computing is a really good thing.
So are there any notable partnerships or initiatives currently driving the integration of quantum computing and payments? Tracy, I know you have something.
I'm encryption. I'm trying to let Abhishek here, like hop in, or Dell, tell us what's some really fun things not under NDA.
Right, that's always the challenge, isn't it? I mean, it's just a really interesting landscape if you haven't taken a look and Googled quantum startup, because you'll probably find, 17 within 3 miles of your house. There's a lot of different movers and shakers out there, and part of that is because it's not a VHS Betamax thing. It's a VHS Betamax and 18 other standards kind of thing. And what you do, or what I've seen anyway, is that there tends to be some partnership that really comes from a place of exploration and research and innovation. And maybe I think that there's a little bit of a blocker to productization because there's a little bit of, wondering, I don't want to necessarily get tied into VHS if it's going to be Betamax or vice versa. And I think that there will continue to be more open announcements to that effect as we go forwards and as the technology matures. But I think right now, when everybody's kind of exploring, there tends to be just a lot of more research than public partnerships is what I've seen. But I also work in a research office. So.
I think as far as in practical use, you will see it in top secret areas. They are using the quantum computer for the random number generators, which is such a waste. You want to see it do something else. And
That's when I would disagree with you about that being a waste.
it's just, there are other things that you can use it for and doing stuff. And as we know now, which is scary on the quantum computers, prime numbers are predictable. And so now that blows up everything. But they're slowly but surely, and it's going to take a while because we were not prepared to use it yet. But also the research, it's tougher. You're not just putting out a computer new every year. You have to use what has been put out because it costs a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So what role do startups play in driving innovation in quantum computing for payments?
I think a better question is driving innovation. And whatever your discipline is, payments is one of those things, right?
Yep.
And how many of you use your credit card on a daily basis? And obviously everyone would raise their hand. And so, yes, payments are important, and we want to make sure it's seamless and secure, and it works every time you want to use it, however you're using it, whether it's on your phone, the website, or however. I'm still not there in terms of the practicalities for innovation. We got the doors just cracked this much, but I'm looking. We're looking.
No, absolutely. And I think
I agree.
there's the question that everybody on this stage, I assume, fears getting asked is when, right? When?
Yes.
Tell me, is it going to be 3 years, 8 months, and 15 days like we've got an ability to prognosticate? But the answer I do give when I get that question, because I think it's relevant here, is that it's a window, right? And there's a window where using a quantum accelerator in your workload, whether it's payment processing or any domain, right? There's a small window where there's some advantage to going through a quantum node as opposed to not doing it. And over time, that window is going to continue to open, and it might open faster or slower. And I can't answer when is quantum computing going to impact, payment processing or window washing or any area without knowing where you sit relative to that open window. And it's tough, right? But I think that the common consensus is that at some point, it will get to impacting your industry, and it's better to be prepared before that happens than after.
Definitely. So how are governments and regulatory bodies preparing for the integration of quantum computing in financial systems? And I'll follow that up with what regulatory challenges could arise from the adoption of quantum computing in payments.
Oh, man.
This is a risk management question, and I'm a security professional, so I'm copping out. No, seriously. One thing about quantum computing is it'll help us identify the probability of risk. And so that's a benefit. Some of the challenges will be is how we're using it. There was just recently a suit opened up against a provider, and I'm sorry for the details and just listening through it, but it was just on the news today. They're using this capability, it's saying this, that wasn't agreed to, boom, a lawsuit occurs because it was misuse of what it was intended to be used for. So we've had that for a lot of things. Think about now most of you may not realize it, but artificial intelligence has been around a long time.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been until in the last 3 years that somebody, we're doing this now? No, there's that seed that was planted, growth and development, and now everybody's using Gen AI, right? Come on. And you got your co-pilot, right? Oh, bad thing, don't do that. I'm a security guy, let me tell you. Privacy. Anyway.
Yeah, I think what's interesting from a regulatory standpoint is if you ask the question, why aren't companies, say, held liable whenever there's any case of consumer fraud, like say credit card fraud, and when our credit card companies work to reimburse and fix, and they do they do a very good job, right? But you say, well, why aren't they required to stop all fraud before it happens? You say, well, they can't do that, right? It's not feasible. And if tomorrow morning a switch was flipped and it became immediately cheap and feasible to do that at scale and stop fraud, I don't know, somehow magically before it happened, then there would start to be a public expectation, regulation, I don't know, but at least a public expectation that would be enabled for what you do. So I think that the expectations about the way consumers are being protected is driven in very large part by the strength of the tools that are available to do that. And I think that that's where it intersects quantum, because quantum is going to change the ability of what we can do. And so if it makes it more possible to help protect consumers, then I think that will be expected.
Yeah.
The current political power in place in the United States has dictated certain constraints as it applies to regulatory requirements around some of this stuff. There are considerations that have to be addressed. Business is typically focused on the bottom line, and they measure risk inherently, and then what residual risk with the countermeasures that are applied will exist, and then and I don't want to be too cynical here, a flip of the coin in terms of yes or no, we do or won't do something. So regulatory requirements are important. They give guardrails to ensure that you as the end user is safeguarded. And hopefully the right people will put in place the right controls and constraints to help guide us through this labyrinth, if you will, of quantum computing.
Okay, would anyone else like to add to that? Oh, all right. So what does the future look like for quantum computing in the payments industry over the next 5 to 10 years? And how can organizations prepare today for the future integration of quantum computing in their payment system?
So that's actually why I specifically used credit card fraud in the last answer, because that's something that's being explored right now.
Right now.
Yep, using quantum computation to actually help detect credit card fraud.
Yeah, there are banks now doing that around that piece to see if they can catch it sooner, because the impact is huge to the bank, but it's also huge to their customer. And as they look at the quantum computing, if it could help make a unhackable customer journey, they feel like they've won. And so you're seeing people lean into what can we do to stop these really horrible inconveniences in their customer's life, but hugely impactful financial instances within their banks. And I don't know if you saw recently JP Morgan, and you can maybe give me this number because you probably watch the feed more than me, but daily, how many billions of hits of people trying to hack them a day? It's billions. And so they have to start thinking about how do we do this differently? What technology can we use to start dealing with it? Because what they have now, it's holding on for a moment, but nobody's sure how much longer it could hold on.
Scary. Yeah.
So fraud is an issue, especially in the payments environment. And that's been an ongoing issue and will continue to be an issue. And ideally, with the computational capabilities along with modeling to address those, what's normal, what's an anomaly, and with accuracy, it will be moving forward and a plus. We're doing that right now with Gen AI. So it should be a natural progression of everything you do, whether you're investing in security for the payment processing or processing things quicker, which is a challenge right now with quantum because of the encryption standards that have to be applied, blah, 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 in terms of time and processing. But we'll get there. It'll happen.
So what advice would you give to young professionals and students interested in pursuing a career at the intersection of quantum computing and finance?
All right, I'll go first. So we've focused a lot on quantum computing, and honestly, nobody in this room, even people working on it, know when it's going to be real, right? And there's a huge, and I'll talk about the mostly not spoken about things, right? So there's a huge group of scientists that believe that quantum computing will never be real, right? And it will never scale beyond 200 qubits. The noise is just way too much, and it's not going to ever have practical applications. However, on the positive note, and it kind of comes back to payment industry and security, is there is another field of research which is also being heavily invested in right now is quantum networks.
Yes.
And quantum networks have been real, and they can be deployed right now with current technology. although scalability there also is an issue because you don't have quantum repeaters that can, so the quantum networks need repeaters every so often like any other classical networks, but their distance is limited to 100, 200 kilometers. In the best case, if you go through satellite, maybe 1,000 kilometers. But that is quite promising. And if you can strategically design your network such that you place the repeaters in areas which are not prone to hacking, you can have a reasonably secure networks and connect data centers through quantum networks and so on. There's also another field of research that is upcoming, which has a lot of promise, and also driven by DARPA and DoD, is quantum augmented networks. So we may not go completely quantum networks, but we may actually use quantum phenomena and quantum technology to augment and improve the security of existing classical networks. So these are very promising practical directions. If you want to have your hands dirty and deploy something which is useful tomorrow, I would say these are possible directions to go in.
Did you say DoD, Department of Defense? Interesting. So
yeah, they
that could
have
be
several calls of proposals. I think it has lots of military applications as well. So a very open call for proposals. Everybody can look up.
So maybe someone interested in to pursue a career in that could enter through the military then.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Interesting. Okay. So which quantum-resistant cryptographic techniques show the most promise for securing payment transactions, and why?
Don't you feel like that's a trick question?
Yeah, let me answer it in exactly that way, because as we mentioned a few times tonight, NIST is in the process of selecting finalists for post-quantum cryptographic standards. And a little-known story, or maybe it's not little-known, it depends on who you talk to, is that very shortly before they were going to announce their set of finalists, one of them, again, I think just weeks leading up to the announcement, one of them was broken.
Oh.
With a laptop.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so if NIST is still perfecting an answer to this question, I'm not going to presume to know better.
They suggest this next month that they're going to announce the finalists.
It's exciting times.
And just to put some nuance on it, they thought they were going to announce earlier, but when you think about all of this math and you're getting bigger and bigger problems, what they found out is while the math could hold, there were sideways attacks. And so all the cybersecurity companies were grabbing it in the middle of the computation. And so there was a stop to go back on the Kyber Chem key and look at how lattice was done so that they couldn't grab it. Because it doesn't help if they could grab it during the computation.
Amazing, amazing. Well, we literally just ran out of time, so thank you so much. Let's give our panelists a big hand. So now we're going to go ahead and open it up for the audience questions. And if you have any questions for the panelists, please raise your hand, and we're going to bring the mic over to you. So any questions? Yes, we have this lovely lady in the middle here. Yes, thank you, Lourdes.
So I had a question for the gentleman in the middle in regards to the cybersecurity piece. I feel that the money is in the tech and not in the oversight. So is it a realistic expectation that cybersecurity will be able to keep up?
I'm absolutely confident cybersecurity will be able to keep up. I don't see a challenge there. What I see is we have tech debt. We have backward compatibility. We have processes that need to be corrected because they're not flexible, they're not agile, they're not adaptable. So cybersecurity has always been there to kind of shore up the holes, and it's not just a solution to fix it. It's how we're protecting it as a whole. Cybersecurity is defense in depth. It hasn't changed, and it'll continue to be that way.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. We have this gentleman up front.
How you doing? Terrific job, everybody. My name is Greg Johnson. I'm a professor at NYU and MTech. And going back to the question about cross-border payments, I also lead some work for the Bretton Woods Committee, and this is deeply, deeply being researched, both at the Bank for International Settlements. This was a big part of what was going on in Davos this year. So that is a question that's being looked at with great, great concern, given the move towards central bank digital currencies, even in part of the world. It's potentially catastrophic. So I do have a question. The question has more to do with how do you factor in quantum sensors, quantum communications into this conversation? It would seem like they do have a role to play. They're underinvested in general, those ventures. But how does that fit into the overall puzzle as it applies to payments, et cetera? Thank you.
So are you suggesting Internet of Things, or are you talking the actual sensors that manage the environments around the quantum?
Little of both. Probably, if I'm cheating, I'm really more concerned about the communications element, but yeah, open-ended.
If I may, Internet of Things is a serious challenge. And it's not just because of quantum. We've got lots of gizmos out there talking all over the place. You go to your home, the lights, or whatever it is you've decided to put on your refrigerator. All of those things are talking. They're communicating. And, oh, by the way, the bad guys are using them as well. There is a Internet of Things IoT group there's several of them, but one that's being more international to kind of address some of these challenges. It's like, we have issues now. What happens when this occurs? And so again, with the doors open this big, we've got to address some of the challenges we have currently, yet alone add on the capabilities of quantum.
Thank you for your question. Appreciate it. Does anyone else have a question? Yep.
So bear in mind, I watched Oppenheimer recently, and I hear cybersecurity and the warfare and all these other things. So I'm thinking much along the lines of nuclear. And given the fact that quantum is limited right now, should there be a heavier hand? Should we be looking at the people who provide that access to quantum and say, how are you vetting those people that get access to limit the possible exposure? And because all I'm hearing about is the negative use cases, right? And that's what's scary about this. So curious about your thoughts around the governmental aspect.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things going on here, and I think the very first one is to go back to what Abhishek said about the availability of studies like quantum networking, quantum sensing as well, being a big part. So quantum technology is definitely a broad umbrella of which quantum computing is a small part. So there's an answer to the question that has to do with, how does investing in quantum technologies writ broadly cause maybe security concerns in that sense, and in that I'd probably be less willing to speak specifically to. But within the context of quantum computing in particular, it makes me think of this push to nationalize large AI models or have a heavier government hand in them for those national security reasons. And this is where I again go back to Abhishek, because he made a point that was a bit of a downer but true, and in this case is actually a bit of reason to be optimistic, which is that these quantum systems are, broadly speaking, they're not mature enough, they're not scaled enough right now to have a significant impact much of anywhere at the moment, but then that would include national security concerns.
Can I temper that national security concern a little bit? Thomas Edison and the light bulb. That's where it started, okay? And then, Albert Einstein and what he injected, and Planck, one of the other scientists, says, no, this is the way life is. You can't do that. Suddenly, he changed his attitude about it. And now you've got the little lasers, again, same principle, where you're playing with your cat. So, yeah, the Big Bang, woo, it could happen. But it's been that way for years, right? That's not new information. And we're probably at cyber warfare right now, okay? That's been on the DoD's list for a while. And how do we declare we're in a cyber war? That's a legal question, right? So I think, not to diffuse the end of the world scenario, but I think we've got a long way to go before we close it, get to that point.
Thank you for your question. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep, we've got a couple more here.
Okay. And you got it?
So at the beginning, you started by talking about the types of problems that quantum is good to solve. But I didn't hear anyone mention, is there any overlap in the AI, the gradient descent, the loss function processing, the training of AI models? Is that a kind of a category of math that quantum's good at? Could they affect the way we train models and things like that, or is it just an unrelated problem?
No.
No,
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
yeah, please.
Please go.
No, yeah.
It depends on the model. and I'm going to go back and let you follow up with that because you know what I mean.
Yes.
And he'll make it more technical. There will be some models that you'll absolutely still be training in GPUs, DPUs, but there are very specific models that you are absolutely going to want to use GPUs for because it will enhance them, optimize them, and make them, it'll just make them better. And they couldn't do it outside of the GPU. But I'm going to let you get technical because I'm afraid to say anything technical in front of this group.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I'm actually going to go the exact opposite way with it and say that I hear a lot of people mention rightly about the way that, oh, well, you know, AI is a large consumer of compute, right, for both training and inferencing, and if quantum is a form of processing, then let's inject it and see what advantage we can draw from it. And Tracy's absolutely right. In some cases, that's going to make sense. In other cases, it'll make less sense. But to go back to my personal bent, which is to try and lower that barrier to entry, what I'm much more interested in personally is what AI can do for quantum instead of vice versa. And if you were to task right now with sitting down and programming for a quantum computer, right, you know, takes a bit of a learning curve. But if you have Copilot, if you have generative AI tools, if you have coding assistants, if it's trained on quantum algorithms, all of a sudden that's going to be a very useful tool. So I think that quantum for AI is a very interesting space, and there's a lot of questions to be asked and answered there. I think that another question we should be asking is AI for quantum. How can AI help us both improve the hardware, but also lower this risk of adoption?
Did I answer your question? Yes. Awesome. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Yeah, we have a question up front here. Oh, there she comes. Running across the stage.
I can't see anything, the lights.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a question from our online audience, and the question is, are there any recommendations on how to stay up to speed on new quantum computing developments? It seems important to stay aware of new things if they're still in the early stages of tech.
I usually wake up to Teams messages from my coworkers who all follow it very closely. So
I'm going to give this simple answer because I talk to a lot of younger people who are going into this field. There's a skill shortage. So you can pretty much go on Azure, Google, AWS, and they have ways for you to keep up with what's going, what is practical. They give you sample use cases. They literally give you labs where you cut and paste code so that you can try it. They give you grants. And I'm always afraid I'm going to run out of the grant with the first run, but they give you grants to try these business use cases. And just touching it and knowing what it can do will help you keep up with it so that when you read it in the news, it's just not a news feed where you feel like you need a dictionary, technical dictionary to look everything up. And that's a way to put it in context. And I know I mentioned it earlier. If you haven't gone into Google's lab, they have a really fun lab that they are using to explain how quantum computers work. And that's really helpful when you, once again, read the news feed. If you don't have context to read the news feed, it's hard to understand. Each time I pick up the news feed, it says somebody has hit some new milestone. Well, I don't know what milestone they hit if I have no context. And I would just get in there and touch it within the cloud companies. They want you to, and they're encouraging you to.
it also helps you discern hype from reality.
Yeah,
Some headlines.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you to our online audience. Appreciate the question. Do we have any more? Yes, we have someone in the back, a gentleman in the back. Oh, and front.
Just a quick question. There's this concept called quantum-inspired computing or algorithms or something like that. And it's this idea that in trying to solve a quantum problem, it stretches your mind, stretches your existing concepts, and then you end up getting new insight about something classical in the classical realm. Can you give some insight examples of anything that you've come across?
Go ahead. Our company.
All right. I'll start.
Go ahead.
Because I already started telling this story, and I finally get to give the punchline now about the supply chain use case we did. And so I've been saying two different things. One is that the logistics problems that we face on this enterprise scale, supply chain are extremely vast, and then also QPUs are limited in scale. So, squaring those two, the answer is that what we did was we wrote the quantum algorithm to solve the logistics problem, and we found that the output, the actual problem that was to be evaluated by the quantum processor, was just too large to fit on the quantum resources we had available. So what we did was we emulated it using just a regular CPU-powered server. And we had a classical problem. We solved it classically, but again, the way we went through it was quantum-inspired. So yes, I think that's an extremely valuable phrase.
And I wasn't going to talk about my company, but I'm going to talk about our company.
Oh, goody, yay.
I am in cybersecurity, and I'm a patent writer of AI and encryption patents in perfect secrecy. So we took the DARPA experiment where they did perfect secrecy in 2004 on a quantum computer, because I don't know if you've heard, it can't be done. Well, it's running in Azure and soon AWS today. You don't need a quantum computer. So we expanded our minds because it is too expensive to have perfect secrecy without a quantum, if you're going to use it on a quantum computer. And it is the only cryptography that Shannon's perfect secrecy, not semantic, that is theoretically not able to be cracked by quantum computers. So when we were looking at cryptography, we were able to step back, and it's better to do it on the classical computer. It's cheap, it's easy, you can deploy it as a managed app today, and you don't need the quantum computer. And we got rid of all of the problems around the whole quantum computer piece, expense, the passing of keys, and all the things you think around it. So by approaching that 2004 paper and trying it differently, we exist today because of expanding our minds and going back to the classical computer.
I am so glad you asked that question because I love that answer. I love you sharing that with us, Tracy, because we are down to our last 20 seconds. So that was awesome. So thank you for the question. Yes.
Server farms and states, there's not enough electricity to do it. In fact, if you look at Vogtle, it was 10 years over timeline and something like $17.8 billion. And it was the first nuclear reactor that launched in the world in the last 40 years. So is there enough power to do what you're saying to do with quantum computers or even Bitcoin or crypto? Because right now it doesn't look like you have enough power to do this. There's great ideas in the future, but not enough power to supply it.
Great question.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So you said we're out of time?
I'm going to take that question, and it's going to be a clunky answer. Yes and no. If we do it the way we're doing it today, no. But if we start leaning into synthetic data and not just running problems to run it, because that's the way we've done it before, we have a chance of doing it. But if we do everything the way we did it before, we will have an energy problem.
So I can give a slightly different answer there. So obviously for quantum computer implementation, there's lots of different technology being explored. The one that makes news is the cryogenically frozen, right? So 0 Kelvin. But there's also photonic quantum computing being explored, which is room temperature and doesn't require that much power. There's also neutral atoms that's been discovered just in a couple of months that does not require that much power. So there's lots of alternate technologies that don't require that much power being explored.
All right, thank you so much. All right, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you to all the panelists. And let's hear it for Burns, Chris, Abhishek, and Tracy.
Thank you to you guys.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The bright light.
So while we've reached the end of tonight's discussion, the learning and fun doesn't have to stop now. If you want to learn more about quantum computing or how Go Studio can help you chart a path to your future, then scan the QR code on the screen right now or speak with one of the Go Studio staff. They'll be near the Go Studio sign. Thank you, Atlantic Tech Village, for hosting us. Thank you to all the attendees for being here and sharing your evening with us. We really appreciate it. And a special thank you to our esteemed panelists for giving us their insights on the future of payments in quantum computing. Now, lastly, stay tuned to our social media channels for an announcement of the second part of the speaker series and our startup competition. All right, did anyone else work up an appetite like I did after hearing about quantum? All that brain power surely worked up an appetite for me. So the good news is our reception is starting now. So go get ready for cool refreshments, tasty treats, and engaging tech talk. It's been an honor to serve as your master of ceremonies today. And thank you, and for this incredible journey into quantum computing and payments. Go Studio and Plug and Play appreciate you coming out tonight. And we hope to have sparked some ideas that will have lasting impact on your business. Thank you again, and good night.